Hello. So today we're talking about types of trailers that are used to move machinery and equipment. And quite often you need a special trailer because equipment can be either heavy or it can be too tall, right? Uh, Even something as light as 60,000 pounds, like a rock truck. Let's say it's not too tall, right? But there's videos on YouTube where people try to load a rock truck on a regular step deck trailer. And what they didn't realize is that the step deck, it only has frames on the outside, right? There's nothing in the middle. It's not a very strong trailer. It's not designed, for, let's say, a rock truck with tires, right? And so there's too much weight. And I remember that video, like the whole trailer just started folding. So you need something with very strong frame for heavy loads, and also you need a trailer where the deck is lower than a step deck, right? Because let's say your machine can be 11 feet tall, it can be 12 feet tall, so it's going to be too tall for a step deck. Of course, small machinery such as farm tractors or small backhoes, they can be loaded on a regular step deck. But with big equipment and heavy equipment, quite often you need something like this with two drops, right? One drop is here in height and the second drop is here. And that's why these trailers are called double drop trailers. Whereas a step deck sometimes is called a single drop trailer. So this is a double drop trailer. So the main deck is lower than the top of the tires. And there's advantages and disadvantages. The deck is usually way shorter than what you can have on a step deck, but it's also much lower. But this trailer has to be very strong, and so usually they are heavy, right? And double drop is a very misleading term because strictly speaking, a double drop is just that. It's a trailer with two drops in height. So nothing here, we're not talking about the front deck, whether it's removable or non-removable. And so nowadays, most double drop trailers, they have a removable front or neck, right? And that's why the second term, quite popular, is RGN, removable gooseneck, right? But in my practice, in my experience as a former trucker, I discovered that most brokers, most freight brokers, they use these terms for specific trailers, even though a double drop can be an RGN, right? And RGN is also a double drop, right? But what people usually mean when they use these abbreviations is a double drop. Usually it's a lighter trailer, usually 30, 35 ton, maybe 40 ton capacity, like gross weight, which means that it can only take, let's say, 35 tons. So that's the weight, maximum weight of the load and the trailer, right? And so usually by double drop, people mean a trailer with three decks, three distinct decks, front, the bottom, the well, and the rear. So this way they can load a lot of stuff. And most often these trailers, they have a manual removable neck. It's not hydraulic. It takes twice as long as a hydraulic RGN to disconnect and reconnect, but it's still possible, right? If you don't use a crane or a forklift to load, you can still disconnect the front, and let's say you have a farm tractor, so you can just drive the tractor on the trailer. So that's the double drop, right? So typically three decks. And especially when it's a light trailer like 30, 35 ton, quite often they would have very long well or deck. Can be typical like 29, 30 feet, even 31 feet, whereas RGNs are usually designed for heavy loads, and most of the time, what they call an RGN, it does not have a front deck. It just has a gooseneck, right? It has a narrow gooseneck, so you cannot put a load in there because quite often it'll have like a little Honda pony motor to produce power for the hydraulics. And in the rear deck, it's just, there's just a frame. So you can put a couple of skids in there, but since RGN trailers are designed for heavy machinery, and most jurisdictions will only allow only one piece. And that's why these trailers, they also have a short well, because let's say a 55 or 60 ton trailer, you cannot have 30 feet in the well unless it's a stretch trailer or extendable trailer. Most often it's 24, 26, maybe 28 feet in the well. And that's the difference between a double drop and RGN. At least that's how many freight brokers understand this. And then there's, to make things a bit more complicated, there's also a term called lowboy, where if you go to some oil sand place, right, they use the term highboy. And by highboy, they mean a flatbed, like where the deck is like usually, 8, 9 feet off the ground. No, maybe 7 or so, right, up to your chest. Whereas this one is a lowboy, but basically a lowboy is the same as RGN. So narrow gooseneck with no deck, just a well for heavy equipment, and the rear is usually open, just main frames, and then they have some axle bolsters, so you can still put a couple of skids in there. But again, you cannot have multiple pieces if it's an overweight or oversized. Well, if it's oversized, it's okay, but if it's overweight load, meaning that the gross is higher than what's legal, let's say 80,000 pounds in the States, you cannot have more than one piece. But some states and some provinces in Canada, they will allow, let's say once I moved like a combine from Baltimore Port to Canada, and it was too tall with the tires. And so what they did is they loaded the combine, they drove it on, and then they used the big forklift and they just put some timbers under axles, and they removed all wheels, and I stacked them on the back of the trailer, and they allowed me to run like that because with these agricultural machines, and in these 3 states, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York, wheels are part of the load, right? But again, very few states and provinces allow this, so you have to double check. Let's say a dozer, right? You're moving a dozer and the blade is too wide, so common sense says, hey, disconnect the blade, put it on the back of the trailer. But again, not many. If it's a light dozer, right, so they will allow that. But if it's a heavy dozer, like 80,000 pounds, 90,000 pounds, many places will not allow that blade to be in the back of the trailer. Examples of the trailers that we just discussed. So here's a multi-axle trailer with a tandem Jeep and tandem booster in the back for heavier loads. This yellow one, that's a mini deck. One type of trailer I did not mention, but these ones have very low loaded deck height, like can be like 8 inches, 10 inches. And so you can put on like a 14-foot tall generator or something. But they're all steel and they're very heavy. And usually the center is not open. Now this one here, okay, this is a drop side rail. sorry, they don't have a bigger picture, but drop side rail, so where's the sides are lower than the middle, and so the middle is raised. So this is perfect for big machines, but it's not very good for machines with, you know, where the wheels or tracks are close together, because then that raised center will be in the way. But this probably was my favorite trailer when I was a trucker, because it's very easy to load, because the angle of attack over here is very shallow. It's super safe. Otherwise, you know, with a regular trailer like this one, yeah, like this one, this would be probably like 22, 24 inches deck height over here, and so the ramp is very short and it's very steep. So when you move, let's say, an excavator, it's very difficult not to let it slam on the trailer. Once I had a shock just torn off from the bolt where it was connected, because the machine went down pretty hard. And so, yeah, all kinds of trailers. And this one here, that's a beam trailer. Like, well, this is a modular trailer, but you see on the deck, that section, that's a beam deck. So looks like this is a modular trailer, right? So they can take off two bolts here between the bogies and the deck, and they can take out this deck and put in the beam. And so the beams are super useful for something like big machines, you know. Like this is a local manufacturer in Quebec, Canada. And so here they have all types of trailers. Now this is a 3+1, so single axle booster for heavier weight. Here somehow they managed to fit a 3-axle crane on what seems like a short deck, but I can see they put those plates under the rear wheels to probably raise the frame of the crane so it doesn't hit the trailer. So normally these, when it's 3 axles or more, they need at least 30 feet on the well. But also here they have components, and that's where they show different decks. Like this is a beam. Yeah, okay, I was looking for this picture. Yeah, so you see here, what happens is that the wheels of this huge loader are probably like 4 or 5 inches off the ground. And so if this thing, let's say, is 13.6 to the top, right, and then you add this 5 or 6 inches, you're still only 14.2. And that's what these beam trailers are for. They're designed for extremely tall equipment, because if I were to put this on my previous 60-ton GN, which had the loaded deck height of 22 inches, it would be too tall for, you know, like, it's possible to get permits, but it would take forever, you know. And you can see this guy's using a 3+1 single axle booster for extra weight. This is typical North American style, where they require you to have more spacing between axles. Otherwise, some states, probably half of them, will not allow you 80,000 pounds here, right? Let's say you have a quad like New York, PA, they will give you 20, 20, 20, 20. But you go somewhere like Kansas or Missouri, they will not allow you 20,000 on this last axle unless you have this spreader bar or booster, right? And so this worst case scenario with the super heavy loads, you will see a 3-axle Jeep, 3-axle trailer, and 3-axle booster. But this is a humongous wheel loader. Yeah, so definitely a specialized deck is required. And here's a drop side rail. Yeah, so it's hard to see, but the sides are lower than the center, And you can tell that this thing is super heavy because the guy has a Tridem Jeep, Tridem trailer, Tridem booster, just what I was talking about before. And the truck looks like it has a lift axle, so it's a 4-axle truck. This is a monster trailer, which will definitely require some pilots and escorts. And that's the issue with these, you know, whenever you get very long, the expenses just go through the roof because you need pilots, and pilots are not cheap. And this is probably the last trailer I wanted to show you guys, is this mini deck. Again, so these are super useful for like tall generators or tanks, you know, some air conditioning units, because they can be 6-8 inches loaded deck height, but because they're so short, they require lots of metal over here. So it's not even wood, all this is metal. And so they're heavy, and also they're not very strong, because again, because of the short size of the wall. So normally you see them like 40-45 ton capacity. Rarely you will see a trailer like this like 60 or 65 ton, because they will weigh a lot of pounds, you know. So anyway, that's it. I hope this was useful. Thanks for watching. Ciao.